Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. My name's Graham. I go by HamHocks42 on the interwebs, and I'm joined by the one and only DamienF16. Damien, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just a duet today, unfortunately. We've got fellow team member Favretto on the front page of Twitch right now. Woo!
Let's go.
So he's crushing it. And yeah, it's kind of a slow week, right? It's kind of an in-between week. We had we've got a few weeks till
Aetherdrift,
Drift, thank you.
Yep.
Aetherdrift comes out, and then we've got Innistrad Remastered coming out, but that's only on Magic Online. It's not even on Arena. It's kind of weird that's right around the corner. But there's still some stuff to talk about, so I'm doing well. I know I'm going to be busy this week building a PC on stream. I'm going to do it live, so we'll see how that goes. Wish me luck. I don't want to imagine the fail video that we can generate from this as I fry something like on camera.
I'm sure the clips are going to be great. Yeah.
Yes, it's for the content. How about you? How's life? What's new?
Dude, life is good, man. So yeah, doing the ambassador thing, which is like not crazy time consuming, but it's more involved than I had previously anticipated because I'm trying to make the most of it. And actually, this past weekend, I participated in a little like exhibition tournament actually that some of the ambassadors put on. We did a 60 card sealed Innistrad Remastered tournament where we were using our play booster box to make 60 card decks. It was a very goofy...
IRL. Oh yeah, right. Because Wizards sent you some product.
Well, we did it over Spell Table. So yeah, exactly. So all the ambassadors, we got a play booster box of Innistrad Remastered, and so we made sealed decks based on it. And I gotta say, they were really fun. And I built a very boring mono black deck because I got a couple captivating vampires.
Mono black. Oh,
wow. I did mono black. And because I got a lot of desperate farmers, which was actually the card that really carried me. It was kind of amazing how much work it put in. Because it turns out, in a sealed environment, if you can just consistently get a 4/3 lifelinker online, you win a lot of races. It's pretty handy. So, yeah.
but like again, the first thing I thought was you played a 60 card sealed format and you managed to put together enough playables to play a monocolored deck. Like, what?
Because I was using we had a whole box to work with. So it was.
I guess. Oh, right. You're doing drafting 30 or sealed 36.
Yeah, because it was 30 some odd boosters. It was 32 boosters, I want to say. Yeah, it was a 32? Lot. So so I decided to go for consistency, and I did have a Gristle brand in there. I never got him on the field, but I did have it just in case. Right. It was it was silly, but I made it to the finals and ended up losing to a deck that had 2 wedding announcements and a bunch of Lingering Souls, which turns out that was pretty good. Yep.
Gross. Lingering Souls is in that limited that limited environment? Oh my god.
Yeah, so shout out to Elder Dingus Highlander who took it down, and shout out to MTG Baron who hosted. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Damn, nice. That sounds sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. So that was my that was my Saturday. But yeah.
Lingering Souls at Uncommon,
Lingering Souls at Uncommon, and the artwork looks like something out of Ghostbusters. So yeah, it's interesting.
Work. It's an interesting set. Stuff. I mean, I guess I'm probably not going to end up drafting it. I don't go to the shop very much these days, as you know, and this set isn't coming to Arena, as I mentioned earlier, which is unfortunate because I would like to try it, but so I haven't even really looked at it at all. I haven't really, I don't know what's in it. So yeah, Lingering Souls at Uncommon. Wow, so that's actually a pretty powered up set, probably.
It is. Yeah. And honestly, one of the things that I was really impressed with about it was, I mean, the quality of the reprints is definitely there. You know, I've heard a lot of kind of friction and frustration about the price of the boosters, just in general, which is that's a fair feeling. I get it. But if anyone tries to claim that the value isn't in this set, then that's kind of disingenuous, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of really powerful stuff, and even at lower rarities, like at Uncommon, you have Lingering Souls, you have cards like Blood Artist, we have Faithless Looting that is at Common, I believe. Like there's a lot of, just even as a Commander player, just the number of staples I now have access to just by virtue of cracking some packs that I just have more copies of, that I can get them into more decks. It's just aces. I'm a big fan. So
it makes sense. Last week we were talking about it, and I was saying, it's a great. These sets are typically great for building cubes out of, because you have a lot of the build arounds and stuff. But especially when they bump up the power, like you said, like that really gives you everything you need to build a decent cube. Like cubes should be a little bit more powerful than your average set, I would say. So yeah, giving these master sets a bit
Oh
of a
yeah.
bump makes sense. But
Yeah. If you
yeah,
wanted to build an Innistrad
yikes.
cube, start with a box of this and you'll be fine. Yep. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Cool.
it's pretty darn solid. Yeah, so in general,
Well,
and that's the thing. It was funny when we were talking about what to talk about today on the podcast. There was this thought of, well, Innistrad Remastered isn't out yet, but then kind of looking back the last few episodes and just what we talk about in general, it's like, well, this isn't going to impact any set legalities. We've already kind of talked through some of the cool reprints and some of their art, so that's not really there isn't really new ground to tread there. And it became pretty clear that talking more about Innistrad Remastered might not be particularly valuable here. I still think the set looks cool, but if it's not your bag, I get it. If you want to revisit Innistrad, sweet. Here's the thing for you. So yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
So moving forward then, looking at Aetherdrift. So we have Aetherdrift coming out here soon, which is a ton of fun. And actually, it's now become official since the last episode. I can say it. I have a preview card for Aetherdrift, which is really exciting. So January 27th, so next Monday, I'm going to be debuting a card for the very first time, and it should be a fun one, I think. And it's one that
you can't give us any hints.
I cannot get. Unfortunately, I can't give you any details. I wish. I'm looking forward to it. It does involve a new mechanic that I'm going to break down, which I'm excited. So that'll be fun. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, so I'm excited for it. I think it's okay that I say that much and leave it at that. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Nice. But we do have other spoilers. They've spoiled a few different cards from this set. Actually, not many, only 4, I think.
Yeah, only a couple at this point. But there has been a new one since our last show. So, we talked about the Gear Hulk last time, and we talked about a few others. And there is a new card that they've spoiled alongside kind of the introduction to the story. So the Aetherdrift story is out, and I believe it's still kind of unveiling. We're not 100% as of this recording, but with the first episode, they introduced Lifecraft Engine, which is a new vehicle. It is a 4/4 for 3. As it enters, choose a creature type. Vehicle creatures you control are the chosen creature type in addition to their other types, and each creature you control of the chosen type other than this vehicle get +1/+1.
Yep.
And crew 3.
Glorious Anthem boat. Yeah. This is... It's interesting. I mean, yeah, the nice thing is here, who cares about crewing, right? You just have a Glorious Anthem. You just play it. It sits on the battlefield. But yeah, that's interesting. It's colorless. So a Glorious Anthem that's colorless goes in every single, creature deck, regardless of color, is kind of powerful. I'm a little bit interested to see if this is going to work, but I don't know if that's good enough. Like, Glorious Anthem on its own is probably not good enough. We've already seen, in the last set, wasn't it? Or Bloomborough was a white-green, Glorious Anthem that was only 2 mana. It was 2 colors, but...
Yeah, Foundations had
It was in Foundations, sorry. Yeah. And, like, that sees no play. I mean, there's other, Glorious Anthem effects in the format that don't see any play anymore, like War Leader's...
War Leader's Call,
I believe. Yeah, that card is, used to see play in things like Jeskai Convoke. Now they just don't really need it. Imidane's Recruiter's, good enough. So, I don't know. It's interesting. But the fact that it is colorless does mean, if any deck out there does want this kind of effect, now they have access to it. Whereas before you had to be, white-green or white-red, and, having it go from a gold card to just the colorless card. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It is an interesting design. I think I will be surprised if there are any decks in Standard that take advantage of it. I'm trying to think of creature type matters decks in Standard. I mean, we have mice, and they're so fast. The idea of adding anything that isn't just going to apply damage immediately seems kind of not. It seems like a waste of a card slot in the deck.
Yeah.
We also have, I guess, rabbits were a thing for a minute where like that could take advantage of this deck or this card, I suppose. What it really reminds me of, though, is Patchwork Banner, which is a really powerful, well, it's a beloved card from Bloomborough. It was an uncommon in that set, and it sees no meaningful Standard play, at least in the competitive scene, but it is one of the chase money cards from Bloomborough at this point. I believe it was,
Really?
last I checked, it was like $5 for an uncommon. Just because creature type matters, strategies in Commander love this thing. It's a 3-drop mana rock, which in casual formats, or in casual decks is fine, if not great. But the fact that it also brings an anthem to the party for a particular creature type is excellent. Well, with Lifecraft Engine reminds me very much of that. But instead of getting the mana ramp, you're getting the ability to, activate it, turn into a 4/4, or have other vehicles in your deck that all of a sudden now count towards whatever creature type you care about. So that's kind of an interesting idea, the fact that you can take whatever your favorite creature type is and then also add cars and have it, potentially work. So I think in Commander, this is going to be a fun card. I will be shocked if it sees meaningful competitive play, but I think there are going to be a lot of Commander players that are going to have a ton of fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's kind of my feeling on it.
It's interesting. That was one of the new cards. And of course, they just, like, 4 of the cards the 4 cards that have been spoiled, 3 of them are vehicles. Is crazy. We could just do the last vehicle here. It's an uncommon. It's the only uncommon that was spoiled so far, I believe. But Earth Rumbler. Do you want to tell us what it does?
We can chat about that one. So it's a 7/6 for 5 with Vigilance and Trample, and you can exile an artifact or creature from your graveyard, and it to make it a creature till end of turn. So you can basically like collect evidence or like forage instead of crewing it, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I see a 7/6 Vigilance Trample for 5. It looks like a slightly, I mean, this looks to me like a Colossal Dreadmaw for this set.
Yeah.
Except it just happens to be a card. Which is fine.
Cool.
There's nothing wrong with that, but
yeah, I mean, it dodges a lot of removal. I don't know what kind of... There's obviously got to be some artifact removal in this set, but...
I'm sure there will be,
just dodging sorcery speed removal is good, so you get to crew it on your turn and swing. But a limited card, like just a limited, uncommon. But
limited with this many vehicles is definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out and to see what kind of removal you want to prioritize. Yeah.
Did you play Kaladesh, but when it was out?
I actually didn't. I missed Kaladesh when it first showed up. Yeah, unfortunately.
That was a lot of vehicles, but there were some crazy uncommon, like, bomb vehicles. Like, the mythic uncommon of the set was like an uncommon vehicle. And, vehicles were annoying to play against. Let's just leave it at that. So, we'll see if this is anything like that.
I did actually, I played, Kaladesh Remastered when it hit Arena. And I believe, I know the one you're referring to.
It's like a train or something?
Untethered Express? Is this the
one?
The Pain Train, I believe it's been referred to as. Yeah.
That was the second set. That was Aether Revolt.
Okay.
And both of them were insane. That one was insane too. But in the first set, there was another one very similar to this.
Okay.
I think it was a 5/3, but it was ridiculous. And these vehicles, like at uncommon, can be very powerful and take over games of limited. Again, they naturally kind of dodge a bunch of removal and things, which is really annoying. So so you sweep your opponent's board and they just slam it. Now this was a crew 1. This Earth Rumbler's a crew 3. That's really what the vehicles are defined by, is their crew costs. And 3 is kind of steep. Like as soon as you hit 3, it's to the point where you're like, I could just be attacking with this guy. It's fine. Like he has a good attack here. So we'll see what happens. But the fact that you can crew it without paying the crew cost is pretty good. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think the fact that you have an alternate crew method on this, and I'm hopeful that we just see more of this moving forward with vehicles, because having alternate crew methods gives you some interesting lines. And this is the fact that you don't need a creature on board means that if your opponent hits you with some kind of sweeper, especially if it allows stuff to go to the graveyard, if it's Day of Judgment or something like that, being able to then exile one of the things that just died and you're still smashing with your Earth Rumbler, it's pretty great. But when it comes to fighting against vehicles, your point about removal is very important, because sorcery speed creature removal, like that's not going to get you there. It's just not.
Yeah.
So
hopefully they put a lot
destroy
of
artifacts
speed.
Or be instant speed. Yeah. That's just what you need. So it'll be interesting to see how this limited environment shakes out. But speaking of the limited environment, you mentioned Kaladesh and like the previous set, Kaladesh, where vehicles were actually first introduced. Appropriately, with Aetherdrift, we actually are going to be going back to the same plane, except it has a new name now, which is something that I wanted to touch on. Yeah. So they've actually renamed Kaladesh, and it's one of those things where it was they got some feedback when the name first came out, or in the first set dropped. Apparently, there is a Hindi dialect where there some of those particular morphemes, some of those syllables form a phrase that's kind of unfortunate and has some implications and was somewhat offensive. So it was a relatively fringe case, but it was there, it was real, and Wizards decided to take action, so they did away with it. And now what was the plane of Kaladesh is now being called Avishkar. And apparently Avishkar is actually just the Hindi word for invention, which I think is pretty elegant and makes sense. I like that. And it fits with the flavor of the plane. But the thing about it that I love is not just that they're taking action. The thing about it that I really enjoy is in universe, they came up with a reason why the people of Avishkar have decided to rename. And so they're not trying to rewrite history. They're not trying to claim that it was never called Kaladesh, which could have been a really awkward and clunky thing.
You write it into the story. Yeah. You write it into the lore. Yeah,
exactly. And so there was actually a revolution that occurred on Kaladesh, just off screen since the last time we were there, and the consul, whose authority we all know and love. So thank you, Foundations, for reminding us of that. The consul actually has been overthrown. And so there's actually been a complete, regime change on Avishkar, and the new government, that's trying to claim to be of the people. We'll see how that goes as time goes on. I'm definitely curious on that front, but they have decided that their world should be called Avishkar. And one of the things that I really appreciate in the story that has come out so far, there are characters who are dealing with the name change. Like at one point, we have Chandra, I believe she was talking to a reporter, and she referenced, Kaladesh and caught herself. She talked about growing up on Avishkar. And so they acknowledge that the characters are having to make this transition with us, and it just helped make it a little more real.
It's interesting. I didn't know that, but I'm looking on Scryfall here. And I'm wondering, they changed the name of the set, but are they going to also change, what's going to happen with the cards that have the set name in them? So if I'm finding two cards here, Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, and Invasion of Kaladesh from much later, from Mom. So those two cards, I assume are going to keep their name, right? They're not going to be...
Will.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
They have acknowledged that they will not rename those cards. Yeah, they're not gonna undo that. They're not trying to deny the past, and the set itself, set Kaladesh, will remain named Kaladesh. Yeah. They're not gonna rewrite that product.
Because how are you gonna do it? It's already so out there. Widespread, disseminated. But
no, the toothpaste is out of the tube on that one. So it's just moving.
That's fine.
Forward.
I like it.
Yeah,
and it's acknowledging that, hey, we're gonna. Acknowledge that this is offensive. We realize that, and it's fine. And that's the other side of the coin where I think, if you were somebody who maybe spoke that dialect or from that region and was like, what the hell is this? This is like a straight up, offensive word on the, and then you find out that Wizards is doing this. I think most rational, reasonable people would be like, okay, I get that, and it's fine that there's a couple cards with, or, the pack's already out, in the wild with that name on it. It's fine because they've acknowledged it and they're correcting it going forward. That's great. So I think it's win-win. I think it's easy and it doesn't affect anything. I know there's been some rumblings, of course, with people who don't like this move, but ignore those people.
I think whenever you change anything, someone's going to complain. Yeah, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
But
the other thing on this front, the other thing on this front that I want to call out, big shout out to K. Arsenault Rivera, who's the author who actually is writing the Aetherdrift story. Doing a phenomenal job. She's absolutely killing the game with him, in my opinion. And one detail that I thought was amazing that was introduced in the first chapter, there is one character who is from Avishkar and is definitely totally cool and on board with the change and hip and young and whatnot. And you meet her father, and he refuses to use the name Avishkar. He continues to call it Kaladesh, and he's definitely like a console sympathizer and like an old head. And so it's just one of those where that is one of those little details that is so relatable, and like it just encapsulates the whole thing and tells the complete story so elegantly. It's like, yep, got it. And
that's funny.
It's a beautiful detail that I thought was really well done. So
I always felt the best.
I thought it was really cool.
Totally, yeah, no, you nailed it. I think the best fiction, and even science fiction, is often that which mirrors reality, which mirrors our actual world. it's weird. Like a lot Asimov and a lot of like sci-fi writers. You read a lot of write a lot of read a lot of what they wrote, right? The stuff they wrote about the future and everything, and you think and see the parallels to avoiding the kind of pitfalls that we've already gone through in history and things like that. I mean, even a show like Battlestar Galactica, at that time, it was such a good show because the writing was mirroring a lot of the world events that were happening, whether it was, in the Middle East and a conflict here and there. And it was really interesting because, it was relatable. And it was almost like, even in the future, we're still grappling with these because we're still us. We're still humans and we still have these flaws and, stupid notions sometimes that we're trying to combat even 30,000 years in the future or whatever. So it is cool. I like it, and good for them for acknowledging it and everything. I think that's awesome. So
if you're looking for an alternative marketplace online for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed products, I have great news for you. MagicJank.com is an online marketplace for people who love all Magic the Gathering has to offer, even the jankier bits. Join the MagicJank marketplace with your own storefront. Whether you're a small business or a hobbyist with more bulk lying around than you'd like, MagicJank.com can help your products reach new customers who love the game as much as you do. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Avishkar. It'll be cool to see what comes out of there. We talked about the Bright Glass Gear Hulk already. A lot of these, and you could tell by the designs on these vehicles. Like for those of you listening, when you look at the art on Scryfall, immediately Avishkar has this very distinct architectural style, and the vehicles all have this very distinct filigree kind of look to them, this very fine metal work, like all around, and you can tell. And I love that about Avishkar. Was I played this set. It's going to be hard for me to get used to this,
and that's okay. Yeah.
Avishkar was so unique in its like the inventions. When I see an invention from there, I know immediately. And just like every other Magic player could probably tell you by the art, oh, that's from Avishkar and not Mirrodin or whatever. The Mirrodin has its own very distinct style to all the inventions, creatures, vehicle, you name it, that are on there, the artifacts. So I loved, back then it was called Kaladesh. Now we're going back. Avishkar, it's going to be awesome. I loved it the last time around. I don't think they will, but I hope they bring back masterpieces. They haven't announced that. They probably would have if they were, but they were gorgeous. Oh my God. The ones from OG Avishkar. They were great, and
some of those masterpieces were absolutely.
I still have a couple actually.
They were in fact masterpieces. They were the border and everything. It was subtle while being very different from everything around it, and they definitely pop. Yeah.
And because they were all artifacts and stuff, it just, that's what you think of when I think of a masterpiece, like you said, like that's it. When we went from Amonkhet before this, a lot of people, me included, did not like the masterpiece frames and stuff in Amonkhet, and then to see this was like, oh wow, that looks good. Yes. Anyway, we'll see. I don't think they're coming back, but one can hope.
Yeah, we did see. So the Lifecraft engine, when it was spoiled, did show off a showcase frame, a showcase artwork that was that is very stylized and very bright. So that's there will be showcase.
Yeah, it was a very colorful plane. I remember like a lot of bright colors and stuff and a lot of things. So cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We do have one more card that did get spoiled from not from Avishkar, but from Aetherdrift. I keep wanting to say Aether Road. I don't know why. But Aetherdrift. Daretti Rocketeer Engineer.
Yeah.
Daretti's back. Sparkless, unfortunately. So he's just a goblin artificer back to being a tinkerer.
Yeah, and he's in
tell us what he does.
A much more utilitarian kind of off-road wheelchair instead of the big like mech spider crawler that he's been in the past. And
he looks like he's working in Mad Max's garage or something. I'm like, some like
there's
post-apocalyptic future.
100%, a lot of Mad Max vibes in Aetherdrift so far, and honestly, that's one thing I want to call out is and when it comes to Aetherdrift, the aesthetic is one I didn't expect to enjoy, because it's just when I heard the Death Race set, I was like, all right, whatever. I kind of like immediately was kind of put off by that idea because it's very much just tropifying Yeah, it's another kind of genre take on Magic. Now, to be fair, at this point, I've come around to it more than I expected to, which is also funny because I thought I would really like Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I thought, like, when I first saw that spoiled, I thought I was going to be all about it, and then it came out and it was fine and didn't really do it for me. This is doing the exact opposite. For some reason, there's something about Aetherdrift that's sparking joy, and it's
cool.
I'm absolutely biased. The fact that my first preview card will be in it, yeah, that's absolutely a factor. But like I'm not going to claim that it's not. But even so, like, the aesthetic of kind of this Mad Maxy kind of vibe, it's not post-apocalyptic by any means, because there's the worlds are still very much alive and vibrant. It's just you have the down and dirty, make the fastest thing you can with whatever you've got kind of energy.
Right.
And we have a ton of different racing teams. Like, there are 10 different racing teams that represent the different color combos, and they all have a different vibe and different aesthetic. And it's
sponsors.
Wild.
They've all got their own sponsors.
Of course they do. Yeah.
But I meant Doretti in particular. When I look at this art, for those of you who can't see it, it looks very Mad Max-esque because it's got this very sepia orangey red. It looks dusty. It looks like he's working in the pits on a very dusty, dry planet, like a desert world. So it just really heightens that feeling of, kind of post-apocalyptic future where the sky is scorching hot and there's no ozone layer anymore or whatever else.
The art is definitely kind of leaning into that same aesthetic. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. Anyway, what does he do though?
But Doretti, it's a Goblin Artificer, star 5 for 5. So we have a creature for 5, which, I mean, it's such a bummer that Standard has gotten so fast that when I hear a creature for 5, it's like, does it win me the game? If the answer to that is no, I'm probably not interested. But
that's right.
Anyway, so its power is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. So Portal to Phyrexian Enjoyers, you got a 9/5 on your hands. Whenever it enters or attacks, you choose an artifact card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return the chosen artifact to the battlefield. So Doretti here is powerful. A titan of trash for treasure. Is what we've got going on.
He's a goblin welder, but instead of activating whenever you want, he has to attack. But the ETB, I mean, he does it when he ETBs. So this is a 5-mana portal. Like, if you do play Portal to Phyrexia, it's very easy to get into the graveyard, especially in red. And then you slam this on turn 5, maybe earlier. I mean, I don't know. You're talking about an artifact deck that's playing, got to be playing a bunch of cheap artifacts to get up to this guy. Iron Crag, maybe, something like that. And then you slam this on turn 4. But Portal's really it, right? I mean, after that...
Right now, yeah.
Like, is there another great artifact to slam into play? Not really, right? So...
Yeah, not particularly yet. But at the same time, though, this is going to be in Standard now for 3 years or so. Plus, we have whatever's coming in Aetherdrift. So this is one of those cards where it could activate some crazy huge artifact that would be otherwise unplayable some point down the road. Like, if Parhelion comes back. Well, maybe we can think about it,
Well, exactly. Yeah. It'll get forgotten about. Nobody will talk about this after the set releases. And then in a year and a half, when we've all, nobody remembers this guy, CFT Sock will bring a combo deck and with this guy in it, and it'll spike in price, and it'll be an insane,
blow everybody's mind. Yep,
like Nissa Ascended, or Nissa, whatever she was, the 3-mana Nissa from
the Resurgent Animist, I think, from Aftermath.
The Resurgent Animist, from Aftermath, which was like when that card suddenly came out of nowhere and is a 4-of in one of the best decks in Standard after everybody forgot about it. It spiked in price. It was impossible to find. Nobody could get copies of it. It's hilarious.
Well,
now I don't know,
because that wasn't a cheap card anyway. Just because the Commander players already loved mythic. It, but it was it was a mythic from a set that a lot of people didn't like. So I'm sure the supply was pretty low. So not
a lot of people opened that. That's an interesting
Aftermath,
one, right?
But anyway, but in the meantime, I have a feeling once you're actually opening Aetherdrift, like once you're actually at the pre-release, I actually in limited there might be some fun ways to use it if it's if there's if there's support for it. Maybe there will be cases for it, because it could very reasonably be the biggest thing on the board that can also recur some cool threats. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's okay and limited. But as far as constructed is concerned, this is going to be the bulk where you're kind of bummed to see at first.
Probably.
So it'll be interesting to see. Unless if you're a Commander player out there who wants kind of a quirky mono red deck, this could be a fun one to build. I could see that. So Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool design. I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's the last one we've got. So
Those
we're
are all the
waiting for
previews
more
that we have so
spoilers.
far. Yes.
Yeah,
And there will be a
we'll
lot
have
more
more for
spoilers to
you.
come, and we will be covering them when they do.
That's right.
I definitely am eager to chat about it because I don't know, the set looks fun.
You have one.
It's gonna be a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. When is it? 27th.
It's gonna be releasing. Well, my preview card is January 27th, so that Monday. So I'm going to be posting to all the socials, just absolutely everywhere, and I'll be putting out a YouTube video. My plan is to do a long form sell me this card short, where I'm going to be selling it to piggy banks, and I'm going to do a trimmed down, like, edited version for the shorter form social media. But I'll have a long one that goes into some more detail over on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
just don't waste your time making a TikTok. Anyway,
you know?
Let's stay on topic. So standard.
Standard.
Have you been playing much this week?
Honestly, I have been playing a little bit, but I revisited Insidious Roots just because I can't stop that. I can't quit that deck. I love it. It's even when it's not great, I think it's great. And so the thing about Insidious Roots is that it is a goofy all-in combo, and all the cards in it are only good in that deck. Like, that's the one thing with it is like, you're using Snarling Gorehound, you're using although I'm using Haywire Might. I'm using Haywire Might and Insidious Fungus in that deck. And the 4 of Haywire Might in the main was a game changer. Let me tell you what. That unlocked things. But Foundations brought a card in that is amazing in Insidious Roots. Genuinely, shockingly good. That really did kind of open things up a little bit, and that's Scavenging Ooze.
Oh, was not expecting that. Okay.
Yeah. So Scavenging Ooze is back in Standard, and in Insidious Roots, it's nothing short of amazing, because once you have the roots down, so the general move is to get Insidious Roots down, and then get Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler, on the field. The moment you have that, all of your plant tokens can tap for mana immediately. So if you have enough cards in your yard, you can pay 1 to activate the Scavenging Ooze, exile something from your own graveyard, trigger, get a plant token, which will hopefully trigger your Snarling Gorehound, allow you to surveil. If you hit another creature, you can then use the plant you just made to exile. So the Scavenging Ooze is an alternative to the Osteomancer, which is, the Osteomancer Adept is currently the card that makes it go infinite.
Oh,
Scavenging
you're not playing both?
Oh no, I absolutely am. I'm just saying it's you get a second angle to approach that. In the past, in previous builds, if you don't hit the Osteomancer, like if you just don't mill into it with Tyvar, if it doesn't arrive, you have these 3 elements that you need to hit in order for the deck to work. And if you miss any of them, you're gonna have a rough go of it. Well, now Scavenging Ooze gives you the opportunity to maybe get there even if the Osteomancer doesn't show up, and that's huge. So I've really enjoyed it. And I may or may not have immediately. I tried it on stream, played it for like 2 or 3 hours, and then when I finished on that stream, I literally hopped online and ordered 8 copies of Scavenging Ooze, because I was like, I need this immediately. Well, and
I need a playset and I need a backup playset. Stat.
Exactly. Well, and because they're selling for 20, 30 cents right now, and to the point where I even found the there's an alternate art from M21, I want to say. That I think is pretty neat. Yeah, it was from M21, and it's selling for like 50 cents. And so it was one of those where it's like, I'm going to throw you $5 and you're going to send me a ton of these, and we're all going to be happy with this. Cool. Yeah. So those are going to be arriving soon, so that my physical copy of Insidious Roots can get a little bit of an upgrade.
And you have you have it in paper as well. That's awesome. I mean, it's such a cheap deck to put together. That's the kind of deck that everybody should just have it in the back pocket for. I'm going to go to the local F&M, and I don't care about playing the best deck. I'm just going to have fun. And there you go, bust out the roots and ruin people's
And there's
day.
a chance that that you could catch somebody not prepared for the graveyard shenanigans in the sideboard.
Oh yeah.
And
more than a chance.
Yeah, you could have a pretty good day with this. It's a much better deck than I think people realize. And so at your local scene, you might be able to really.
Yeah, I don't know. It's powerful. Yeah. I mean, once it gets going, like you said, there's 3. Yeah. I call it the stool. Every time I talk about combo decks on my channel, I say, every combo deck is like a stool. You need 3 legs. You can't have a stool with 2 legs. If you only ever get 2 of the 3 legs, it's not going to stand. You won't be able to sit on it and crush your opponent or whatever.
exactly. Yes.
Analogy. So, but it's not stable, right? 3 legs,
No.
and yeah, a lot of combo decks. When you're missing one of them, it's so frustrating. I mean, Squirming Merchants, a lot of the Reanimator decks are like this.
Yeah.
I was playing a deck that has, if you don't mind, you talking about Roots reminds me of a deck I briefly played. I didn't play a ton of it, but recommended by somebody in the channel. I believe it was OKI Scoop. You probably, I think you might know that person.
I know
They
Scoop,
they sent
absolutely.
me a list of Jund, but it wasn't Insidious Roots, but it played a bunch of the same cards. It played the guy that goes to the graveyard and surveils from the graveyard, and it was Jund, Self Mill, and then Fling a Lurgoyf. Fling Souls of the Lost, fling some huge thing. So a bunch of the cards Self Mill. It's playing the 1 mana rat that 1 black mana 1/1 that it ETBs. Target player mills 2, and when it dies, it gives -1/-1 until end of turn to something. So you're milling yourself with that.
Underrated little
Gnawing Vermin.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're playing the green 1-drop as well that ETBs Surveil 2, and then when he's in the graveyard, he can be exiled from the graveyard to give a counter to something. Whose name, just
Rubble
random
Belt Maverick. I want to
Rubble
say?
Belt. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
I know this guy. Talk about a card that's great in this kind of deck, and
yes, that's what I'm saying. It's a bunch of these kind of cards, same as the Roots deck. Not all the same cards, but similar. And then of course the 2 big creatures are Souls of the Lost and the new Lurgoyf, or not new, but the Lurgoyf that we have in Standard. That's Sultai. It's green to cast, but then it's black and blue to kick, and you mill 3 for each time you kick it. So you just get one of these huge things into play, and then you use the red adventure, red-black creature with the red adventure that says, target creature gets sacrificed, you deal damage equal to its power to any target's Callous Sellsword. Yeah.
Callous Sellsword, the spell on that is called Burn Together. Yeah, really powerful
Burn
effect.
Together, yeah, and you're seeing, sometimes the Gruul decks in Standard will touch Callous Sellsword for Burn Together. Like, it depends on the build. I know a lot of the Leyline of Resurgence red decks, like we just saw this big, Standard regional championship, the Standard Spotlight series, the Star City Games, the biggest Standard tournament we've had in about 5 years. And that tournament was won by a Gruul deck playing Leyline of Resurgence, which none of the other Gruul decks in the top 32 were playing. Nobody was playing that version. And a bunch of other Gruul decks did well, but the one that won the whole tournament was a Leyline deck, and that deck is playing the Callous Sellsword as well a lot of times. And man, that thing catches you off guard a lot. You've got to really be careful to play around it. So this Jund deck, getting back to the deck I was playing, is kind of doing something similar. I mean, it's not quite as aggressive as a Gruul aggro deck, but it doesn't matter. Once your guys get big enough, like against aggro, man, a large Lurgoyf or Souls of the Lost is unbeatable. They can't attack into it. They can't kill it. They can't do anything. Even if they steal it, you chump block it 1 turn and that's it. And it's just a ticking time bomb. They know that as soon as you draw, Callous Sellsword, it's just going to be over. It's a really sweet deck. But yeah, a lot of cheap cards, a lot of, the whole thing. I think everything in the deck costs less than 3. I think there's a couple Tivar that cost 3, and that's it. That's another card that it shares with Roots to bring back all these, all the Lurgoyfs and the Souls of the Lost. They all cost 2 or less.
Nice.
So Tivar's in there, Tyvar. Yeah, it's a pretty sweet deck. It's a graveyard-based deck, so of course you're a little susceptible to graveyard hate, kind of like the Roots deck. But of course, you probably play a lot of the same sideboard cards that deck does. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, sweet little sacrifice deck. I was playing some other stuff though. I'm back. I think I spoke before on the podcast about the Omniscience combo deck, the Azorius Omniscience deck.
Yeah.
Where you're using Abuelo's Awakening to cheat Omniscience into play. I think I talked about that deck. I don't remember, but I've been getting back to that.
But
yeah, it's good.
If you'd like to give a quick rundown, so Abuelo's Awakening, bring back Omniscience. I mean, I feel like that's kind of speaks for itself, but yeah, what are the big finishes in there?
But it's resilient. I mean, Invasion of Arcavios is the third leg of the stool. So you've got Omniscience, Abuelo's Awakening, and then Invasion. And Invasion of Arcavios lets you go to the sideboard. At first, I was going to the sideboard to get Season of Weaving, which is the Bloomborough blue season that, you get 5 paw prints worth of modes. Every single time on the blue season, you just choose the last 2 modes, where you copy an artifact or creature that you control and bounce everything to hand that's not a land or a token. So you copy the Omniscience that's in play, you get a token copy of the Omniscience, everything else bounces to your hand. including the Invasion of Arcavios you played to get season, so you replay Invasion of Arcavios. But after playing the deck, I realized, wait a minute, you don't even need to do that. You can just play Season of Weaving, go straight to the sideboard, and get Unnerving Grasp. Unnerving Grasp is a 3-mana sorcery speed bounce spell. You just bounce your own invasion and manifest Dread, which gives you a 2/2. You can just do that over and over and over and over, and just that 2-card combo. Invasion of Arcavios, Unnerving Grasp, bounce Invasion. Invasion of Arcavios, because Invasion of Arcavios doesn't just go to the sideboard, it goes to the graveyard, of course, which is what lets you get the Unnerving Grasp, or the Season of Weaving is what I was doing before. It's so much easier and quicker. I had Breach the Multiverse in the sideboard, and I was like sometimes fetching that to kill them, but that requires having 2 invasions in play to loop with This Town Ain't Big Enough or some other bounce spell.
Right.
No need. You just get this thing and just go off with this. The only time that it doesn't work is if you don't have enough cards in your library to manifest. Because every time you do the loop, it manifests 2. So, a long drawn-out game against Domain or maybe Mono White, some late-game deck, you might end up with, 15, or maybe you just get unlucky. That happens. Sometimes you're plowing through your deck, and you don't find Omniscience or Invasion of Arcavios until the bottom, like 15 cards. And if that happens, now you can't go for the Unnerving Grasp combo. Well, that's when you just get Season of Weaving and do it that way. And then you finish it all off with the heroic reinforcements out of the board once you have a big board of either 1/1 token Omniscience token creatures or manifest creatures. So it's a very resilient deck, and the more I'm playing it, the more I'm realizing like I'm beating a lot of the graveyard hate that people are bringing in against you. Because unlike other reanimation decks, like Squirming Emergence is very powerful and resilient, but when they do drop a Rest in Peace on you or something that eats your whole graveyard, like it's ironic. Ghost Vacuum is the most played graveyard hate, but it's the least impactful. Rest in Peace, or to a lesser extent, Leyline of the Void, are just wipe your graveyard, or Tranquil Frillback or Kutsil's Flanker. Anything that just wipes your whole graveyard, that's a little bit annoying against the Squirming Emergence deck because it requires that critical mass of permanence. But this version, the Azorius deck, doesn't care how many cards are in the yard. It doesn't care what they are, except the combo pieces: Omniscience, Abuelo's Awakening, and Invasion of Arcavios. As long as you have at least one copy of those 3 cards in your deck, they can keep eating your graveyard, and it doesn't matter. You just, find one of those and then go off that turn, assuming they can't, eat your graveyard instant speed. If they do have a Ghost Vacuum, there's ways to beat it. You have Grand Abolisher in the sideboard, stuff like that. But yeah, cheating in an Omniscience and then just bouncing Omniscience a bunch and killing people, it is very powerful. I put a couple videos of this deck on my YouTube channel. I've been playing a little bit on the ladder. And I mean, aggro and matches like that, they have no chance really. Like, they can't interact with you at all. So they have to just have a super fast nut draw and kill you on turn 4. Otherwise, a lot of times you can go off on turn 4 and that's it. They don't get another turn. It's not just like putting the tracks in to play go, can you beat this? It's like, I just win right now, this turn, like instantly, right? So really powerful, and I'm starting to see it pop up. I think it, when was this? Maybe last week or sometimes this past week, it top 8'd a challenge. There was a couple copies in a couple different, Magic Online events. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this deck. I think this deck has a power level and consistency that's so high that, it's tough to beat. It's got a good game against a lot of the decks in the format right now because they can't really interact with the combo. So even if they bring in a couple pieces of graveyard hate, a lot of times that's just not good enough. I like it against Dimir. I like it against the Esper Bounce deck. All the decks that don't play counter magic are cold to this. They and Dimir moving away from Spell Stutter and Fairy Mastermind and that whole package, and playing Fear of Isolation and the bouncy bounce stuff, Storm Chaser, Talent Town. They are weaker to this, right? So it's positioned very well right now, and it's almost, it feels almost like you're powerless to beat it sometimes. Like, I played the mirror match, and a couple times, there's turns where you just go, well, if they have it, I can't stop them. Like, they win, that's it. And it's a little frustrating. So that piques my curiosity. When I play with or against the deck that I feel powerless against, or I feel unbeatable with sometimes, like, I feel like my opponents have to get either very lucky or pray that I get unlucky. Otherwise, they just like it's a stupid combo deck. Like you can't interact,
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the advantage of playing these decks.
Mm-hmm.
There are games where you lose to yourself, but there's so like
Sure.
you just don't find the three legs of the stool in time. But there's too many card draw spells and digging spells. There's so much velocity in the deck. It churns through. It's like you can go off and have an Omniscience come into play, and you just only have one card draw spell in your hand to cast for free. But that's enough. You go Moment of Truth finds Confounding Riddle, that digs 4, then you find Picklock Prankster, and that dig, and eventually you just hit Invasion of Arcabios, and then it's over. So it's very powerful. I recommend giving it a try. There's some awkward crafts. I really didn't want to craft triple Grand Abolisher. It's mythic on Arena. It's so annoying, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta use mythic wildcards on this. But you really need it. It not only stops decks that are bringing in counter magic, it shuts off Ghost Vacuum on your turn, so you can just go off and you don't have to worry about them, doing anything. So I had to craft that one. That stung a little bit, but Temporary Lockdown also really important in the sideboard. That's a great card in this deck. But yeah, anyway, I've got an article up on MTG Circle, and we've talked about the deck. Perfect. That's what I've been jamming. It's been fun. What else? Is there anything else? I
love that. Well, and I think it's really interesting that you find yourself kind of playing a combo deck, because the decks that I've been playing recently have also been these kind of semi-deterministic win-on-the-spot combos. I've been playing a lot of those as well, between the Reenact the Crime, Breach the Multiverse build, the Insidious Roots deck. And it's interesting that those are possible right now, because I don't necessarily think of this standard as being particularly combo heavy, but the reality is some of these decks that we're playing with, and Squirming Emergence is the same way, these decks are capable of executing their game plan on turn 3 or 4. And so, normally with combo decks, or at least the criticism that I get often whenever I'm playing combo decks on my channel is the question of like, well, how do you win against red deck? And my answer for certain decks is I don't. Like, I just move on to the next match and accept that that's a loss. And it's like, well, am I going to climb the ladder quickly when that's the case? No, I'm not. And I just, and I got to accept I'm trying to do something suboptimal. It is what it is. But with these decks, mulligan aggressively until you find, your fastest start and just go quicker than the red deck. Like, you can do that now. Yeah. And that's insane to me, but we can. Like, there are decks. There are some situations with the Roots deck. If you Roots on 2 into Tyvar on 3, if you hit the Osteomancer or a Skooz, like if you get the perfect curve out, you win on turn 3. And like when I say win, I mean you fling 24 damage at your opponent's face on turn 3. Like that is how you do it. And
it's just consistency. I think that's the biggest thing.
Exactly.
Here. So like there's lots of combo decks in Standard. You're right. Tons actually that we haven't even you haven't even seen in play, because it's, remember there's like mono blue, Sleep Cursed Fairy, Agatha Soul Cauldron combos. There's like one, that enchantment from Mom is still legal, right? Or the set before that. All Will Be One, is that what it's called? The red 5 mana red enchantment. Like that, there's like infinite combos that just never see any play because they're just so inconsistent, and so those are a little too slow. Like the turn 3 kill, that you're describing, or the turn 4 that I'm describing, or Squirming Emergence putting a Trax on turn 3. How often are you able to do that? Because that's the big difference between the best decks in the format, Dimir and Gruul and all that. You look at the top standings for any tournament, and you're not going to find a bunch of these goofy combo decks. And the reason is consistency. That's it. Full stop. Those Gruul decks and Dimir decks, they execute their game plan with a very high degree of consistency every single game. Through mulligans, through, you name it, winning the die roll or not, like they're still able to kill. Like the red deck's going to kill you on turn 4 far more often than you're going to kill them on turn 4 with Insidious Roots, or I'm going to put a turn 4 Atraxa. When a combo deck starts getting interesting is when that consistency level rises to the point where I am going off on turn 4 at the same level as some of these other decks, because now I can compete, right? It's really interesting to see, because like at a small tournament with a low number of rounds, play Charbelcher. Play your goofy 100%. Combo deck with a very low consistency and a high power, because in a small number of rounds, you could steal a couple, and that's the tournament, you know. Whereas a 14-round tournament, like you're not going to see a 1,400 player tournament over 2 days and 13, 14 rounds of standard. Those decks will not make it to the finals, to the top 8, to the top 16 even, because that variance at over that many matches will catch up with you, right? The consistency will start to show, and you will see the most consistent decks are the ones that take it down. But I want to see one of these combo decks get to the point where it's consistently powerful enough to go off on turn 4 and beat mono red just as often as mono red can kill you on turn 4. Then we're talking. So it's I don't know which of them. So far for me, it's Azorius Omniscience combo. That is the closest, but it's still not as high, consistency as an aggro deck or Dimir or something. So we'll see. But
yeah, and I'm with you. I would love to see one of these combo decks kind of step up. And one thing that I kind of want to call out to any brewers out there, because I see you. We appreciate you. When you're brewing up a combo deck, if you see an interaction and you want to be able to take advantage of it, with the final package that you put together, think through what are your ideal draws and how quickly can you actually execute. I've put together so many fun janky brews where even if I got the nut draw, I wasn't popping off until turn 5, and the nut draw was not happening, more than 5% of the time, and it can, those decks can lead to some fun clips and some fun moments, but you got to slog through a lot of losses to get there. Think through your ideals, and like the Breach the Multiverse Reenact deck that I've been playing, that one is running 3 or maybe even 4 Enigma Jewels in it, which is a very aggressive choice, because if I get Enigma Jewel on turn 1, I can execute a turn 3 Breach, and so I'm trying to hedge my bets and make that a blistering fast start more consistent, at the cost of having some good utility removal that might actually be able to keep me into other games. So you got to be aware of that, and you got to balance it. But the other side of that, when it comes to combos, and I want to get your feelings on this, are combos a healthy part of a healthy meta? Because, okay. Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. No, so
no question. Yes.
Okay, perfect. The reason that I ask is because in the past, when combos have been prevalent, they seem to be more likely to hit a ban than decks that lean on good aggro strategies or good mid-range strategies. The one that comes to my mind is Pioneer. When it first showed up, it had a ton of combo decks in it, and Inverter of Truth comes to mind, which is currently banned. There was a time when I wasn't actively playing Pioneer at the time, but I was listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot of stuff about it, and everybody was just complaining about this card. Which maybe it's a situation where that deck was problematic and the play patterns were very not interactive and frustrating. But if a combo deck is the best deck, is that problematic? Maybe that's the way I should phrase it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So what you asked first was like, should combo be a part of the metagame? Should combo be represented at the top of competitive Magic in whatever format? Yes. It's not only a viable archetype, it's an archetype that, like, there's so many things I could say about this. Combo showcases what's possible. Combo is shooting for the stars. Combo is new players looking at cards and going, oh man, like this is, wait, what? If I put this and this, then I just like do some just insanely, I just win the game, like some huge thing. It gets people, the creative juices flowing and all this stuff. And so when combo's only a meme, and when it's, like we look at this and we say, oh, there's a combo with this, but these combos are never good enough. That's terrible. That gives players the impression that Magic isn't about this, that it's not a real thing, that it's just for, you can try this goofy stuff in Commander, but for competitive, this is never going to be a thing. Competitive combo needs to be, or it deserves to be right up there with aggro, mid-range control, and combo. Those are the pillars of the formats, I think. And when combo is too good, that's when we remember it and we hear about it, and Krark Clan Ironworks and the Eggs combo back in the day. And when it's these really like long, drawn out, circle jerk combos where you're not even interacting with your opponent. They have to sit there for 20 minutes while you combo off. Even Nadu was really bad for that. A lot of players didn't even understand like what was going on. Even the players playing the Nadu decks didn't understand why they had this one of how to actually do the combo with this, with the lands, with the channel lands. Anyway, so when it's that kind of a combo, it really showcases the worst aspect of combo when combo is too broken. And that's what people remember. They remember the Splinter Twins. They remember losing to, or Nadu, or, whatever. There's been many over the years, Inverter and Pioneer, sure. But cat combo in standard, I remember a lot of people hating that thing. And when it is like that, like, oops, oh, we printed this thing and we didn't think. Oh, I wasn't even talking about Cauldron Familiar. I'm talking about Felidar, the Felidar Saheeli one in standard. That was
right.
And the Cauldron Familiar, sure, that one too. But Felidar Saheeli was just like Splinter Twin, I win. Like that's it combo, and it was so consistent.
That was clearly an unintended,
right.
These circumstances.
So that's not the kind of combo I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay,
like that's the kind of combo that gives it a bad name. And I think a lot of newer players really don't like playing against combo because, again, you feel powerless. You have to understand how to beat combo, and once you do, you don't have to fear it. You shouldn't don't say it's bad and doesn't belong. That's just you just don't understand how to beat combo. Like, it's not unbeatable. In fact, I would say combo is the safest thing to have be good, because combo decks are often so narrow. They're very easy to tackle. If you want to beat a combo, like, look at a Reanimator deck. It's not hard to beat Dredge in Legacy. It goes from being the best deck in Legacy to unplayable based on sideboard cards. That's how most combo decks should be. And I don't mind having a combo deck be good in a format, because I know all Wizards has to do is print one good sideboard answer, and that's it. The combo deck's held in check. It's not a big deal. But that does have to be balanced. Have there been combo decks that are too good? Yes, and it's a confluence of reasons. It's not good enough sideboard cards. It's the context of the metagame, the texture of the metagame at that particular moment in time was, there was no aggro deck in the format, or there's been many examples. These are other factors that people don't consider when all they do is go, oh my God, Inverter was an insane deck. Well, yeah, it was powerful, but was that the only reason why? No, it's because aggro was non-existent, or we didn't have good enough sideboard cards. Whatever. There's a bunch of reasons, and usually that's the case as to these moments where we go, oh man, combo can never be allowed to be this good again. That said, look at other formats. Look at Modern, very powerful format with lots of potential. Like, you name it, the sky's the limit when it comes to combo decks you could potentially put together in that format. But you don't see a ton of them at the top. You see a few, which are good, like Underworld Breach combo. We've got, Belcher combo is very good. But the best decks in the format aren't combo. They're still Eldrazi Tron or Boros Energy or whatever. Like, they're so that's great. That's healthy. Combo's there. It's not too good. It's easy to keep it in check with the right sideboard and everything. Perfect. And I think the reason you do want that, again, going back to what I said initially, was it does show what's possible with Magic. This is I think the coolest aspect of Magic is, it's a combo deck's just a synergy deck, right? It's just like Elves. Elves was a combo deck, but any Kindred deck, you want to take a Merfolk deck or whatever. Yeah, it's a synergy-based deck. That's all a combo deck is. It's just a synergy-based deck where the synergy wins you the game if you put it all together, So I like that. It shows what Magic is built on and what it should be, and shouldn't ever be so bad, or sideboard cards shouldn't get so good that combo's dead. I think that's bad. So, like, I like that they banned in Vintage and Legacy, they banned the stupid the bauble, or what was it? Oh god, I don't play those formats, but the 1 mana artifact that like stopped people from casting Force of Will and all that stuff, and like you couldn't cast spells, this kind of stuff, like anything that's too overpowering and shutting off, take that stuff. Vexing bauble, stuff like this.
Yeah, legal in Modern, banned in Legacy, and restricted in Vintage. That's how.
Yeah, like good, because
those formats are so dependent on that.
Yeah, let it breathe. They gotta let combo breathe a little bit, and other stuff, and then it's good. But yeah, if combo gets too good, they shut it down. Like, they have to do that, right? But but standard, you're right. Standard's typically, like, when we think combo, a lot of times we think Modern, Legacy, Vintage, the crazy stuff. But Standard, why not? There's been many years where Standard had good combo decks in it. Sometimes they were too good, but a lot of times they weren't. I mean, where do you draw the line? What's the difference between a pure, like, crazy combo deck and a really high synergy deck, like is
Yeah.
the Nexus of Fate Wilderness Reclamation decks, were they a combo deck? Like, is Zur a combo when he animates an Overlord and does something crazy on turn 5 and wins the game? He might as well be. What's the
I
difference
mean,
between that and like a Splinter Twin, or me casting Abuela's Awakening on Omniscience and winning the game on turn 4? If you ramp it to
right.
Zur and do that thing on turn 5 or whatever, it's almost the same. Like, I'm not going to win that game after that, probably,
Hmm.
right? So I don't
But
know.
even
It's a
then,
weird, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but even then, like your opponent has a very strong, turn 4, turn 5, where they're swinging at you maybe with an Overlord of the Mistmores. But if you're sitting
Mm.
back with a Sunfall in hand or some other kind of sweeper, you can still fight back. It's not over. But
Yeah, sure.
in many
Okay.
cases, but to your point, like, and we need that interplay. There needs to be a
Hmm.
response, and I think a lot of times, yeah, if combo can't reasonably be responded to, is when we have issues, and so,
Right.
um. It's actually really
So
funny as
instead, yeah.
yeah, in standard, I think honestly, we keep talking about how standard's in a good place, and I think that's true. And the
Mm.
fact that combo is even possible, the fact that we can have this conversation, feels
Yep.
almost novel. Like it's been a minute since combo I felt like was really viable. I've been
Hmm.
trying to force it for a long time now, of course. But it feels better now than it has in a long time.
I
One thing that
agree.
I love is with aggro decks becoming so strong now, people are having to dedicate more sideboard slots to slowing
Yeah.
things down on that front. And so as a result,
Yeah.
we have that room to
That
breathe, which
that's
is a great healthy dynamic. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the best part. Combo is almost like this, malevolent presence in the shadows, just waiting to strike. And it strikes when people don't respect it, when people stop putting sideboard cards against it in their sideboards, and you
Mm-hmm.
see the 40% of the metagame is aggro and Dimir bounce and all this stuff, and you see the number of ghost vacuums and rest in pieces in sideboards shrink and shrink and shrink.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best time to jam that reanimator deck, or Abuelo's Awakening, I guess, is kind of a
Yeah.
reanimator deck.
Well,
Same thing. Any kind of graveyard combo, or
100%.
artifact combo. Nobody's playing some Stony Silence effect. Yeah, you're right. It's
Well, and
sideboards that dictate it.
I love Ghost Vacuum specifically. As a Zombify player, I am sick of this card and I wish it would leave. As an Insidious Roots player, keep putting these as your only graveyard interaction in the sideboard. Please continue. It's great. The
Yeah,
number of
right.
times that I've had full graveyards loaded and I've had 1 or 2 Insidious Roots on the field staring down a Ghost Vacuum and have my opponent realize, oh, if I activate this, I'm
Yeah,
actively helping you. I'm giving you triggers, one at a time. It's perfect. Like
yeah,
obviously if I'm about to reanimate an Osteomancer and combo off, it is an emergency valve, but even then, I'm still generating plants, I'm still getting my triggers. It's fine. Like I'll live. And
yeah,
so that's a situation where, not all graveyard hate is created equally. They all function differently. You're going to need the
yeah.
rest in peace against me, but if nobody else is playing graveyard decks, you probably don't have it in your sideboard. So,
Well, and the
sick.
other thing, like, not just sideboard hate, graveyard hate, but
It's one
against
example, yeah.
combo in general, I think the most effective, like, so to a lesser extent, sideboard cards are the primary way to beat combo, and
Mhm.
combos power, or how good it is relative to the other decks in the format rises and falls based on the sideboard cards they're playing more than anything. But another factor that's very close to that, just under that, I would say, is how much counter magic is being played in a format. I think counter magic is oftentimes the only effective way to disrupt a combo deck, and
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what kind of combo they're trying to pull off. It almost always requires them obviously casting a very important spell. Sometimes it's a creature, sometimes it's a spell. It doesn't really matter. If you have a No More Lies, or you're playing 3 steps ahead, if you're playing a hard counter or an effective counter in the early to mid game, that's very good against the combo deck.
Mhm.
So how many decks are there in standard or whatever given format that are playing effective, powerful counter magic? Well, if the answer is not many, great time to be a combo deck. So right
Mhm.
now in standard, nobody. I mean, I I I have been experimenting with other decks besides Abuela's Awakening. One of the ones I played was Chris Patello's blue-white control deck. It's playing 4 No More Lies, 4 3 steps ahead. It's playing a bunch of Elspeth Smites and other cheap early removal to try and stop the aggro decks. But I could not believe it when I saw all that counter magic, and I just thought, you got to be kidding
Mhm.
me! Like, standard right now, we've got the 40% of the decks in the format are playing nothing but 1s and 2 drops, and you're gonna play No More
Mhm.
Lies. Like, I don't want to counter a 1 drop with this, like, come on.
Sure.
And Cavern of Souls is still a card that the domain deck plays and other decks, and it's like, what are we doing here? but anyway, that is a separate
Mhm.
thing. It was okay. It was better than I thought, but still, there's some issues there. You've really got to play well. I think, you're going to see good players still maybe
Sure.
put up results with something like this, but it's, yeah. Um, but, other than that one deck I was playing a little bit, I never see a hard control deck in the format. It's very rare that I see a deck playing a ton of counter magic. And that makes me feel good about playing, Abuela's Awakening or whatever, because I
Mhm.
know that, man, if I line up against a deck with a bunch of counter spells, I'm never going to resolve these 4-mana sorceries and
Oh, yeah.
whatnot. So anyway, the time to play, these decks is, yeah, like usually when the graveyard hates, down and counter magic not much. Those are the flags, the green flags to go ahead and, yeah, do something busted, I think. But yeah.
I think you're exactly right. And right now in standard, I mean, the control decks are mono white or,
Yeah.
maybe, splashing like red
Domain.
or green, but they're not, you're not seeing Azorius control right now. You're just not, for all the reasons you're
Well,
you're citing. I mean, if a 1-mana
yeah.
threat is going to line up for 3-4 damage, turn over turn, a 2-mana counter
Well,
spell is not
even
gonna help. It's just
the
not.
control decks, like the domain deck, I'm seeing green white versions where they're
Mm,
just playing all the cage decks and stuff. There's other decks that
yep.
are rising up to beat these aggro decks and these Dimir, low to the ground decks.
Mhm.
And you just feast on Selesnya. Like they have no way to beat you. They'll side in maybe a couple rest in peace, and it's very easy to
Mhm.
blow those up. They don't have counter magic, they don't have duress. Any kind of disruption like that, duress or counter magic, that
Duress.
can sometimes mess with you if you're a combo deck. Like again, it's
Mhm.
the same vein as the counter magic. They are proactively and cheaply interacting with your combo, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. That is problems for a combo deck. If they combine that with pressure, you're dead. You
Yep.
usually lose those games. So white green, like, yeah, great. Even the red decks,
All
like,
day.
they have basically no interaction, and it's a pure race, and you're as fast as them. So it's interesting. I like seeing combo again back in the
Mhm.
format, but again, be very careful if the things start to shift. That you got to read the winds. When the winds
Mhm.
change, you back off the combo deck. Just like when it's not a good time to be able to play control or green decks or whatever it is, that you gotta go with the flow, right? But
Absolutely.
anyway,
Dude, I love it.
yeah, combo's great. I could talk about
Yeah,
combo all day.
and I'm here for it. This has been fantastic, and we will do more of it, I'm sure. I love that you brought up
Yeah.
duress because that's the kind of thing. Like duress and foundations, is one of those cards where if you hate this card, you've probably enjoyed this discussion because yeah, this kind of hand hate really hurts, and it's funny too
Yeah.
because like something that I have an insane vitriolic hatred towards Deep Cavern Bat. I hate this card.
Yeah. You're not the only
Nothing will
one.
send. I find it genuinely triggering, and I like it to an unreasonable degree. I'll call it unreasonable. You don't have to. Feel free to though. I don't mind. But the reason for it is it's not that the card's too powerful. I've never called for banning it. That's ridiculous. And I don't even think the
Right.
card's particularly good. And we've seen a lot of drop off on it in general. The problem is Deep
Yeah.
Cavern Bat is good against combo decks and against the kind of
Yeah.
combo decks. If you aren't running enough interaction, Deep Cavern Bat can take you from if your opponent hits it and you don't have a clean piece of removal that they either have to take or can pick off the bat. You end
Yeah.
up in a scenario where you might have had a turn 3 win and now all of a sudden you're scrambling to find plan B,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those cards where the reason that I dislike it is because it's a sideboard piece to hate the kind of stuff I like to do that people are running 4 ofs in their main deck. And that's,
Yeah.
and so I just want to call out, this is the kind of thing
No, you're right.
where if the
Yeah.
opponents have answers for it, then
Yeah.
you just got to switch tacks. And
So
it's one of those where I'm glad people aren't running it as often these days. You know what I can't
yeah,
wait
it's
for?
definitely come
Yeah.
down. Oh, what?
Yeah, it's come down. Another card that isn't amazing, but it just absolutely stymies the kind of stuff I like to do is Deadly Cover Up. I honestly wish they would
Mhm.
straight up like reprint Damnation into standard just so people would stop running this. Because it's surgical extraction kind of effect when you can collect evidence and strip one card out of your opponent's deck. Well, when they're playing
It's kind of
combo,
annoying.
that can really hurt
Yeah.
you. Like that can completely,
And
yeah, it's
it's
tough.
funny you mention it. The win condition cards from your deck, like Stone Brain is another one that's in standard.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into a deck playing Stone Brain with the Abuela's Awakening, and they pulled off the Stone Brain, and I was just like, well, that's it. Like once
Yep.
I literally can't win now.
Mhm.
So it's this is again getting back to what I'm talking about with combo. It's good that these exist because they're generally very bad cards.
Mhm.
Deadly Cover Up is better because it's an actual playable card with the the strip aspect just kind of like stapled onto it. But just like a straight up like take 4 cards like Stone Brain, I get into so many discussions about this card. I keep telling people don't play this card, it's bad. Again, if combo becomes if this Abuelo's Awakening deck becomes one of the best decks in the format, now sure, now it makes sense to bring in something like a Stone Brain, but don't ever play Stone Brain against anything except the most dedicated combo deck where literally you strip that one card and they can't win. There's so few decks like that. Abuelo's Awakening is one of them, but like Squirming Emergence, definitely not one of them. I can't tell you how many times they would strip my Squirming Emergences from my deck, and I'd go, what? I would just resolve Lumra, ramp to 13, and just start hard casting Atraxas and stuff.
Right.
Or they would take Atraxa sometimes, and I'm like, okay, and then I would resolve, Lumra and kill them with that, or kill them with whatever else, like bring something back from their graveyard with, Anyway, so these kind of cards, and this is where the rise and fall of the format as things shift. Combo is never a big deal because there are cards like this and they sit there gathering dust until that moment when combo shows up, and then you can sideboard this in and it's good. So we have a lot of pressure valves in standard.
Exactly, and I think that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, and the fact that the answers have been so varied, and anything, I like how this is costed. Like Stone Brain is one of those where if you compare it with something like Surgical Extraction, obviously there's no comparison. Surgical is clearly better, especially when you pair it with Duress, Thoughtseize, those kinds of things. It obviously gets nuts. And spending 4 mana for that effect, even if you fire it on turn 3 by playing it on 2 and then activating, like the value, I mean, you need to win the game with that play if you're going to do it because you're not impacting the board at all. Like you're saying, I mean, even in the Abuelo's Awakening deck, if the Abuelo's goes away, your chances are significantly lower. But if they don't apply any pressure, any meaningful pressure, you could theoretically hardcast Omniscience if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
When I mean truly no pressure. I went up against an opponent that was doing this. I was playing a white deck. It was a white control deck that was using Rite of the Dragon Caller as the finisher, which is... It's bad. I know it's bad. My thought was, let's pick something that's suboptimal to see if we can get some jank firing. And so I'm going to put a good control shell to support it, and we'll see what happens. And so Caretaker's Talent, Rite of the Dragon Caller. I cheesed a couple wins. It was fun. A Song of Totentons overperformed in that deck. But I had one situation where somebody stripped my Caretaker's Talents and my Rite of the Dragon Callers. It's like, well, I'm now staring down like a bunch of Sunfalls and Get Lost and wondering how the heck am I going to pull a win together? Well, Fountain Port. I had a Fountain Port, and I literally just did the fish beat down because they kept having to spend removal spells to kill my fish that I was just rocking out each turn. And it was a situation
map
where
up the fish.
Exactly, boost the fish. Let's go. And that was an anomaly, right? And I'm not going to claim that like I never didn't have it back pocket win perfect, but it was a situation where my opponent was going clearly all in on like control. And when I say all in, I mean they had probably 3 copies of Jace Perfected Mind, and that was it. And like I saw one of them once, it immediately got lost, and we just kept moving on. And it was one of those where I kind of chalk up that to my opponent prioritizing removal too much and not having any kind of threat that I was under.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have won that game based on how they extracted those. I'll own that completely and totally. All it would have taken for them was to have a Grizzly Bear in that deck, and I would have been dead. But they didn't have a Grizzly Bear in there. So here we are. So it's one of those things.
Fish did the trick.
Fish did the trick. So even in that situation where all the win cons were taken out, the opponent didn't apply pressure. If the opponent is truly not providing any kind of pressure, you can still scrap out a win if your deck, if you're creative and your deck has enough just all-purpose good stuff in it. So, I cannot urge you enough to be creative as you're playing and try to find goofy lines because they're out there and they're great. And the greats are the players who see those and can find them.
And I mean, if you want to build a combo deck, getting to the deck building side of it, I think what I'm looking for when I look at combo decks and if I try and build a combo deck, I want the entire deck to be on plan. I see a lot of
Mm.
people show me combo decks, and I go, well, what is this removal spell doing in here, or this other thing, and or counter spell, or whatever it is. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, well, what if I need some answers to, my opponent's creatures or enchantments or
Yep.
planeswalkers, or people will put all sorts of stuff in their deck, and I'm like, what? No, you don't. You're a combo deck. When I'm building a combo deck or when I'm looking for a powerful combo deck to play, I want a deck that's 100% in on the combo. The best combo decks are all in on the combo. They don't play any fat. They cut off all the fat. Only the cards that contribute to the combo, and maybe something else. In Squirming Emergence, you're playing Bitter Triumph. Yes, it interacts and kills a creature, but that's not even really why you're playing it. It's a discard outlet. It's part of the combo, almost.
Yep.
Or it's at least, contributing to the combo, setting up, enabling the combo. I see too many lists that are diluted, and I go, this is not a combo deck. You've got a combo somewhere in here, and it's lost in here. It's like, I see it, but you have no redundancy. The second thing I'm looking for in a combo deck, how many of the pieces overlap? Like, Picklock Prankster and Philology Archaeologist, and, how many pieces find my combo pieces? In a deck like Squirming Emergence, the Archaeologist, the Picklock, all of them they not only fill your graveyard to turn on the Emergence, they dig through your deck and pull the Emergence out of your deck and put it in your hand. That is super important in almost every combo deck, going way back, Preordained, Ponder, go right back to Legacy. Every combo deck is playing ways to brainstorm, filter, draw cards, and find those combo pieces. So many combo decks I see people play, or they'll show me a list, and I'll be like, this looks like a sweet combo, but you're never comboing off with any consistency here because you don't have enough redundancy. How are you finding these combo? You're just hoping to draw these naturally, or like what? Like, and this is why Prankster and Philology Archaeologist and all these other things are so good. Any kind of impulse effect, of course, is really good in combo. You need that, and so I'm always looking for how many pieces overlap. Go ahead.
Well, and the thing I love, Picklock Prankster is the perfect example for the point you're trying to make. I think it's absolutely amazing because not only can it dig and help you find specifically the sorcery that you need in order to execute, and while it's filling your graveyard, you can cast it. You can cast it off of Founding the Third Path on Chapter 1, so that works. And it's a creature, so it's a permanent in your graveyard to help get your descend number up. So it's just it's doing everything that deck wants. It's really a perfect.
Same with Founding. Founding, just being able to flash back a Squirming means, not only does it fill your graveyard, it also casts that Squirming out of your graveyard. That might as well be in your hand, at that point. So any cards that let you overlap like that, because again, going back to what we originally said, what I said about combo not being quite good enough, it all comes down to consistency. That is the number one thing. All these other things I'm mentioning when it comes to the deck building side of it, redundancy with your different pieces, you should, if you're serious about, I don't know how CFT Sock what their process is, but if you're serious about building a combo deck, you could even write a Venn diagram or create some kind of diagram on paper and go, look, these are the cards that fill my graveyard. This is one leg of the stool. These are the cards that reanimate, that do the thing. These are the big things that I'm reanimating. That's another thing. And how much overlap is here? That's why do you think Atraxa is such an insane reanimation target? It not only is a big thing to cheat in, it is redundancy. It literally immediately puts more reanimation into your hand right away, almost every time. And if they kill it, you just immediately put it back on the battlefield again. Or find the spell you need to stay alive or whatever. It just gives you that, like, looking at the top 10 is crazy, right? So a lot of the cards, it comes back down to consistency. How much redundancy do you have? How many cards in the deck are all contributing to your combo plan? If all look at the Abuelo's Awakening deck. Every single card in that deck is contributing to the plan. It's playing no Sunfalls, no Day of Judgments, no removal spells. You don't see any Elspeth Smites or Get Losts. It's Philology Archaeologist and Picklock Prankster, the only creatures. Moment of Truth, Confounding Riddle, Afara's Dispersal. Afara's Dispersal is such a disgusting card. It's a 3-mana bounce spell, but it's only 1 mana if you target an attacking creature. That's already very good. But Surveil 2. The Surveil 2 contributes to your plan. You want to put that Omniscience in the yard or whatever, right? Confounding Riddle, counterspell, almost always, it's just Impulse for 4. Cards go into your yard, not on the bottom of your deck like Impulse. It's very powerful in this deck. So I'm looking for pieces that, if I am going to interact, I want them to also contribute to my plan. Why? Because consistency is over everything. Consistency overrules, overrides everything else in a combo deck. And I want Bitter Triumph is another example in the Squirming decks where, yes, it's a removal spell, but that's not even really why we're playing it. I just want a way to discard cards. This is cheap, it's efficient, and it actually helps me stay alive while doing the thing that I'm trying to do. Same with Confounding Riddle or these other cards I'm mentioning. Chart a Course, all that stuff. Look at that blue-white Omniscience combo deck. And you'll see what I mean. Every card is on plan. There's no sweepers, and you think blue-white control, why aren't they playing No More Lies to protect their combo? This is the kind of thing I'll see in other people's decks and go, cut that. But what if my opponent has this and this? No, stop. You are the one asking the questions. You're the one saying, can you beat this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as the combo player, you're the aggressor. You have to be.
Yeah. Don't worry about reacting to them.
What if you have the No More Lies in your hand instead of something that moves you forward in your game plan? Yeah, yes. It's like what happens then? It's like, well, you're gonna have a bad
Sometimes they're gonna have something in your, but so rare. And again, like with that deck, you just put Confounding Riddle in your hand, and that's good enough to counter whatever they have on your combo turn. But I guess again, coming back to the point, it all comes back to consistency. So redundancy with your cards. All your cards on plan. If you are building a combo deck, you've got to just always write that at the top of the whiteboard as you're, the drawing board as you're figuring out your deck. Those are the things you always have to keep in the back of your mind as you're building. And when I'm not just making this up. I learned these lessons after I've looked at thousands of deck lists at this point over the years. And the best decks, go back in history, look at Pro Tour decks, look at any point, even the power disparity is there, from 20 years ago Magic to here, but there were still combo decks. And at the time, if you look at the context that they were being played in, you'll see those same tenets over and over. Consistency, redundancy. The best combo decks that dominated, Pro Tours and, seasons of competitive Magic were like that. They were super consistent and redundant. So back to standard, when you're building, that's what you consider. Now we're looking again, standard. How consistent are these decks? I don't think they're quite there yet. But again, I think that's one of the reasons I like this Azorius one. It's 100% on plan, and it's got just a ton of, built-in overlap, redundancy. So it feels good. And of course, those other factors we mentioned, sideboard graveyard hate's at an all-time low, counter magic's at an all-time low, in disruption. So a good time to try and play that, but they need to be just a little bit more consistent. It's I don't know if the deck needs more tuning. I mean, it's pretty tight. It's all 4-ofs. So I don't know. But anyway, I'd like to see bigger brains than mine work on the deck and come to some kind of better list or maybe better sideboard. When you're playing a card like Invasion of Arcavios, it gets really interesting. Like, how many sideboard slots am I going to devote to this? Like, the fewer the better. So right now, I mean, the only thing I'm ever fetching from my sideboard is the Season of Weaving and the Unnerving Grasp. But you could have a one of. Sometimes I'll go get Exercise, if I need it to kill a Rest in Peace, or you could have a bunch of one-ofs in there, and I'm just like, how far do I go with this? That's the thing I'm grappling with right now. But
because how many wish boards have you made over the years where you put a bunch of situational cards in and then realize that, like, after playing for hours, you have never grabbed most of them? Because I know I've definitely done that.
That's what it takes.
Well, yeah,
it takes playing for hours, and then you realize.
Well, back when Throne of Eldraine was legal, I played a lot with Fae of Wishes because it was just a really cool card. And I'm actually really bummed that the way that Commander handles wish boards, you're not able to use it to its full potential, which that's another topic for another day. But it was a really cool card, and I know it gives you access to any non-creature cards, you own from outside the game. So it could be all good. It could be any non-creature in your board. And I learned really quickly, you really want to pick 2 or 3 that work in most situations or get you the combo win. And then another thing with this particular one that I'm just going to throw out there, which is a little weird, but it's fun. I always had one Fabled Passage. in my sideboard, because there are the games where you just need your
Oh,
5th land, and this would
yeah,
allow you
yeah.
to fetch it. And I know with
Yeah, that's another
Karn
sweet. Yeah.
Great Creator and things that can fetch artifacts, Darksteel Citadel and those kind of artifact lands are
Right.
oftentimes like, because
Yeah.
it's a situational thing that maybe you need it, Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so anyway,
I
but
like that. Fetching a land
yeah,
out of the sideboard,
it was
spicy.
I did it often actually. Like it came in handy more often than not, which looking back was probably because my main deck was a little too greedy and I needed to lower my curve. But it was anyway. But regardless, when you're building those wish boards, yeah, you need to know what's your ideal scenario and what are the emergency levers you'll realistically have to pull. Having one
Yeah.
exercise, have one card that can
Well,
hit enchantments and artifacts, you'll probably be fine. Like that's probably
you know,
yeah.
and I think a lot of people do not value their sideboard slots highly enough. I think a lot of people are willing to, oh yeah, we'll put, why not one of these? Why not a one of duress? A one of negate in case we need to get a counter, a one of duress in case
Mhm.
I want to a one of this, a one of that. And if you take up like a third of your, even just a third, like five, just a third, to me, that's a huge number of
That's
sideboard
a
slots. But some
ton.
people will go, oh, it's just, I still have 10 other slots for other stuff. I don't need to, put, I can afford to put five. But it's like, dude, I want like sideboard slots are very important in
Mhm.
every format, but even in standard, even in the smallest kind of competitive sanctioned format, constructed format, I think even just giving up more than 3 or 4 sideboard slots is like it's a slippery slope. I really think people
Mhm.
it's so insidious. You don't realize the damage you're doing to the deck, like or what you're taking away from the deck in terms of the matchups and the percentages. Like if you just had that third temporary lockdown against aggro,
Mhm.
that is a huge difference between having two, or whatever it is. Um, so be careful. I especially with the wishboard stuff. Like that's what I said. I'm
Mhm.
grappling with it because part of me,
Yep.
the little devil on my shoulder, is like, yes, yes, put more stuff in there. Put more things for me to tutor up. Yes, and I'm like, what?
Mhm.
No, that's wrong. I need those slots to beat aggro, and no, you
Right.
don't. So it's a little bit silly. I don't know where to fall, but yeah, maybe again, I need a better player than me to show me the way. So we'll see. Hopefully, some Jean Emmanuel Depraz listening right now, and he's like, I'm gonna play that deck.
I'm confident that yeah. So if you wouldn't mind sounding
He
off in the comments,
totally
we'd
he
appreciate it. Yeah.
listens.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's
Absolutely.
shy.
I'm pretty sure all the world champions tune in.
They
That's yeah.
yes, they do. Of course they do.
Love it.
Anyway,
Very cool.
so have we
This
talked
was
about combo enough?
this was delightful, and I'm here for it. Yeah, and I completely agree. Combos rule. Big fan.
Combos are
You
great.
play them
Yeah.
and enjoy it. Yeah. Oh, the other thing when in talking about sideboards, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, make sure that the sideboard slots you have meet the same requirements as the cards we were talking about. Like have
Mm.
ones that will progress your game plan. Like my Insidious Roots
Hmm.
deck, I don't have non-creatures in my sideboard. Like Paw Patch Formation is an amazing sideboard card if you're in green. It's not a creature. I need creatures.
Hmm.
I already have the Haywire Mites in the main deck, but I put Cankerbloom in the sideboard. Like if I'm going up against Overlords and I cannot remove enough enchantments, sure, let's throw that
Yeah.
in the mix too. And
Same
let's
with
get that in
squirming.
here.
I've seen
Mm-hmm.
squirming lists where they side in, Terra Sunder and Duress and Negate and Malicious Eclipse or whatever. A bunch
Mm-hmm.
of stuff that are not permanents. They're spells, and then they struggle to get 6 permanents or 7 permanents in the yard in order to
Mm-hmm.
reanimate a Lumra or a Traxa. They just like even by turn 5 or 6 or 7, like they've got 30 cards in the yard and they still haven't gotten to or not 30, but some big number, and like half of them are
Exactly.
spells, and I'm like, dude, like this kind of thing is going to happen. You need to play the matches, and it has to happen to you and before you realize, well, hopefully you realize why why am I
Mm-hmm.
losing these games? God, I'm
Yeah.
struggling to combo off here. Well, that's part of it. Play
Mm-hmm.
Frillback instead of Terra Sunder. Play,
Yep.
whatever other try and find a permanent instead of a spell as that sideboard solution.
Yeah,
But
and we
like
have
you
cards like
said,
Harvester of Misery is one that I've tried using.
yeah, sure.
Um,
Virtue of
in
persistence,
in
or
place of yeah, Virtue of Persistence is probably the right one in that situation. Yeah, I've
yeah,
tried using Harvester of Misery in
Harvester's
my Roots
great.
deck. It's a cool
Yeah, yeah.
card, but being able to discard it for 2 for the -2/-2. I mean, it's kind of a bad disfigure effect, kind of. The -2 I found often like doesn't kill as much as I want it to, unfortunately.
No.
But it's something. It's something that doesn't erode the game plan. Yeah, if your combo decks aren't firing on turns 2 and 3, look at your sideboard and really ask how well they work. Because roots or the Squirming Emergence is a great example of a situation where if they're non-permanents, like you got a problem probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Good stuff.
But anyway, was there anything else that we should touch on?
I feel like that was pretty good, and we've actually been at this for about an hour and a half. So, nice. Like so many weeks, we came into it with, we got a couple things to touch on. It'll probably be a quick one. And here we are an hour and a half later, just nerding about combos.
You said the C word. As soon
I did.
As I hear that C word, I go on all day about that.
Which, I'll make sure to keep that in the back pocket for future, light episodes. Like, so Damien, what combos are you interested in? Yeah, that'll...
Yes. Yeah. If you ever want my attention.
Good to have it. Awesome. Well, we can bring it in for landing. I don't know. Did you have a question of the week that you had in mind?
I didn't. I gotta start trying to. I was thinking of some before, but then I didn't. I didn't write them down. Like I'll be like browsing Reddit, or I'll be like talking to somebody, and I'll have an idea, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a great question, and then I always forget to write it down. Let me just take a peek here. I don't think I did. Sometimes I actually do.
Good.
But I didn't. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, and I had one too this week. I remember on stream going, "Oh, that would be a good question to ask on the podcast." And I'm like, I'm trying to remember last second.
I have that as well, where I'll just get hit with a little piece of inspiration, like, "Oh, I bet that would lead to some cool discussion," and then it's just, then it leaves the head if I don't write it down, and that's that. So, unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank here as well. So
okay, next week we'll do two.
Next week. Sounds good. Yeah, maybe one of these episodes on a light news week will just be like all questions of the week. It'll just be top to bottom, you know.
Actually, I mean, if people sent us questions, then we could do an episode of just grab bag, whatever you guys want to know about.
I think that'd be
Magic
really fun.
Or otherwise, anything.
Otherwise. Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to sound off on the YouTube comments, or we also have a Discord server with the links to that is in the description. If you want to jump in and submit any kind of questions and feedback to us there, we'd really appreciate it. So yeah, cool. Here's hoping that'd be fun. Well, in the meantime, dear listeners, thank you for hanging out. We do appreciate it very, very much. We're both streamers. Our links are in the description. Go click our things. We'd appreciate it. And also check out MagicJank.com while you're there. I don't know. That segue didn't make sense, but thank you for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate you. Damien, always a pleasure, man. And
you too.
We'll catch you on the next one, guys. Later.
See ya.